So this is Echo Condo. This is in North Miami. This is our biggest sheet. This is our 4 foot wide by 13 foot. And we have an end joint that was it's a recon, and the recon blocks are only 10 foot long, so we put an end joint at the factory in Japan. So now we also, when we do that, we like a little blue tape on that where we do the joint because it could be a little fragile at that point. So again, we'll converse with you if there's little subtle differences or things about one production or another production, we'll tell you. But these 4x13s were installed by one man, Lloyd Scheibner. I'm friends with the guy. He's in his mid-70s. He worked completely alone on this project. He's one of those guys, perfectionist. This project is flawless, absolutely flawless. Took him about 2.5 months, but it's 1,600 sheets installed by one guy. What is that to me? To me, it's somebody who's grown up and loved this industry and watched, for every 5 of his millwork pals retire, only 2 young people filled their spot. And you want to build beautiful spaces with your design and architect friends. It means that because of your all skill sets, I can do more with fewer people. This directed drywall speaks to the reality of our current trades limits. There's just fewer of you, and luckily I'm starting to see him, you know, my son and some of his friends are starting to realize, gosh, maybe I could just go into the trades and I'll be happy and I'll have a good career. So here's Oscar. Oscar is going to install the Dalmar Hotel in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, just north of Las Olas Boulevard. He's using the Roman 732 with the RX35. Really like that primer. Do like that 732, but probably our favorite clay is 111. That's, we've tested a lot of different clays. We're going to review primers and clays here in a little bit. 111 is our favorite based on our test to all the different substrates that, or conditions of the substrates that we've tested. You guys know when it's enough glue or not enough glue. If it's too much glue, when it's spewing everywhere, right? If you have too much glue, what's going to happen? You're also, all that moisture's got to go somewhere. Where can it go? Some of that moisture can end up being bubbles, right? So there's that, and this is where you guys know you just got your feel. What's the right amount of glue? Too much or not enough? And you book that sheet. And what is this clay adhesive? Is literally Georgia clay, seriously, Georgia clay, salt, water, and a bit of chemistry. So we don't have to go far to get it. As long as, I mean, I know we just washed away some clay into the sea in Georgia, but I think they still got some left to make this stuff. And, oh, forgive me, this slide's a little messed up, but I think you can see. So this wall is probably a 3, a level 3, but it's a flat 3. I always ask specifiers to specify a 5, okay? I'm lucky if I get a 4 when I specify a 5. Most important is the flatness of the wall. So if I take a straight edge, like an 8-inch, as big a straight edge as you can, you know, even a 3-footer or something like that, and run along that wall, if you see too many high spots and low spots, that wall is not ready to be installed, okay? If you have stuff that gets over 1/8 of an inch over a 3 or 4 or 5 foot span, you have to question, is that substrate ready? And that's why I like that Darby. I like the Darby because if you take a long tool with a sander, sanding paper on it, and you go across that wall, you can see, okay, we got some high spots here, we got some low spots, let's address those. Let's spend the extra $1 a foot, $2 a foot even. Let's spend the money to get the substrate right so the finished product is right, because you never want to take something that's an easy fix on the JIP and with just a little extra time and throw $15 or $20 a square foot wood veneer on it, and then maybe your labor rate's another $5 to $10 a square foot. So do not throw good money on top of bad substrates, okay? And do your due diligence on that. Now, I would say, like, you know, I could pick up a lot of, you know, things that I would have liked to seen better, But as you see very often in hospitality, they're trying to get all the costs down. And it said, like I said before, if it's a good flat 3, it doesn't have mud across it, and you got that substrate, and the substrate is primed, you can still have a good bond. But see what he's doing up there? I mean, for you guys, that's easy. For a mill worker, has any of you guys done any carpentry where you tried to scribe to a wall or to a ceiling? It's a real skill set. It takes a lot of time, and that's why you never see it in commercial markets, because it's just unreasonable and unfeasible and unaffordable. Meanwhile, it's just a tuck and cut. Okay? So the construction of the product, which is that micro-thin veneer bonded to that aluminum foil, means that you had the structure of that aluminum to help keep that veneer from, breaking, and it can kink. So you got to be somewhat careful with it, right? You don't want to fold it, because you will get a kink in the veneer. But if you do get a kink, if you do get a little fold, just iron it. It'll go back down. A little bit of steam. Okay? So a lot of those things are resolvable.
Will that iron, you steam it from the back side or the front side?
Front side. Yep. Yeah, because it's all about how the veneer looks. Okay? So you just get the front side, and you really, as long as you don't have on like too high a setting where you don't want to damage the veneer. So start at the lowest setting where you get the steam, and don't leave it on for too long. And then maybe you'll have like a cotton cloth or something like that on top of it, and then you'll be able to get that veneer corrected. Okay, so it's a good trick. But overlapping and double cutting, right? And I'm sure all you guys are looking at this and going, "Gosh, this got dust flying everywhere. Like this is a mess." But I actually kind of prefer you see that, right? Because it's I like when you guys are working clean. I like when you guys are in Japan. They would never think about doing an overlap and double cut without having tape over the face of the veneer. You are taking a risk when you do this. The risk is that the glue is going to get in the face of the veneer, and you get a little moisture in your sponge, and now you dilute, and you got some of that glue residue in the bucket of the water, and now you're putting slightly diluted glue into the face of the veneer, and you don't see it until 5 days later, and it's starting to cure in the face of the veneer. So work clean. If you're using any damp rag and you think you may have some glue residue, go with a dry terry cloth and make sure you don't have any glue residue. It's easy to get that glue residue off as you're installing. It is brutally difficult to get it off after the fact. Brutally difficult. And I've had entire jobs that are just like glue residue nightmares. And how do you get the glue residue off? What's our favorite? Coca-Cola. Coke, and if it's a light color veneer, what's our favorite? Sprite. So why do you drink that stuff? Okay. My wife cleans the drains with it, right? She taught the kids not to drink that stuff, thank God. But it is tasty, so I can't blame you. So now he's doing that overlap and double cut. He's pulling that scrap out there. So the ability to do this on the job from just an overall logical, how do I do these really complicated door inset areas with the soffits and the door frame, for the mill worker, this is a nightmare. This is like, there's a lot of coordination that needs to go into this. For you guys, it's a breeze, right? So Oscar's able to bang out a corridor a day with his helper. The mill worker would have been on that for a week trying to get all that done, right? This is why this is such a good value. Any questions or comments you guys want to add? No? Well, I really, first I want to also thank you for your attention. I can see you're interested and you're really getting this knowledge. So I just want to really sincerely thank you for your attention on all this. You got a great team. Now, I would say, and in this case, he's going to do a butt joint. And our seams from the factory are that good. You could. I do get nervous though, because if I have too many butt joints in a sequence, I am more likely to see those gaps come through. Now, there are tintable primers that we have tested with success. That's always an option. But my preference will always be to be an overlap and double cut. Now, the sheets, if they're 30, if we say it's 36, it's actually 37. So you do have overage from us on the length and the width, as much as an inch. Okay? So that overlap and double cut should not need to come out of your estimates. Okay, it's in that material. So I think in this case he was able to do butt joints because you got a small little area, so you can get away with it. And if you had a little kind of area peeking through, I keep a like an art pencil kit. Like you go to an art store and you get one of those pencil kits and got all the colors in it.
But it still feels dry. It's just the veneer just now
it's got
nice
all
and
the
buttery.
different types of pencils and different things. It's amazing what you can resolve with one of those $100 pencil kits. Incredible in the joints and so forth. So, and that's all really the client wants. It looks right. Yeah, and
now
yeah,
I'm gonna take
and
it
also
over
too, you
here.
have those wax pen fillers that you can buy at Home
Iron
Depot.
it.
If you get a little
it.
gouge or a little ding, it's amazing what you can hide with one of those too. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So the finished product in the Dalmar. Notice those bases, how they're keeping the luggage off the walls, right? I also, in these areas where you've got elevator lobbies and things like that, not a bad idea to upgrade the gypsum to high impact. It's a little bit more money, but could save the owner in the long term. And I also tell folks that I say, well, what happens if it gets scratched and damaged? The same folks that the furniture delivery guys have on speed dial, which is your furniture repair medics. You find them, I was almost going to say in the yellow pages, but okay, I guess it's a website now. Those furniture medics, those are the same folks that could do magic on this sort of stuff. But if a job has a total damage, every job should have attic stock. Every job should have attic stock. We need overage to run our production. You need overage to run your installation. And if you made it through an install and you only have one sheet left, we all just got really lucky. There should be at least 5%, like 3 to 5%, at least 3 to 5% left over. And then that can be stored in a box in some closet somewhere. Like, here's the box. You could fit 8 to 10 sheets in this box, okay? And so they will be easy to store somewhere should something happen and they need to replace an area. So we're doing a lot of corridors. Because it's so beautiful as it is, we do the premium brands as well as this being the condo commando dream come true, right? And I'm hearing this a lot. Apparently in Texas there was a period of time where pink marble was the thing, okay? It was apparently in the 80s. And I can guarantee you that although right now no one wants to, they're not loving the pink marble in these corporate spaces, in about 15 years it'll be God's gold. It'll be absolute beauty. So what do? Go over, skin it with a 1/4-inch chip, bond it, a couple mechanical fasteners, and put this stuff right over the top of it. And then in 15 years, they'll take it down and they'll be loving that pink marble again. So the fact that you can go into a high-rise building or in an area and you can go in there without a bunch of saws and loud tools and a lot of dust and a lot of this and that, it really fits into what the market needs from us, which is good products, good design that doesn't disrupt the business, that doesn't disrupt the lives and so forth of everyone, you know, in what they do. So now let's talk a little bit about, you know, going to doors. Obviously metal fire door here. These things could be pretty easily done on the job site. And this is where they're going to use contact cement. I'll go back to what I said earlier. The Wilson Arts or the Formica or the plastic laminate contact cements are not meant for this. You got to make sure you're using this contact cement that you're comfortable with to metal you've used before, or use our peel and stick. The peel and stick takes away any of the gassing issues, because if you have gases trapped between the aluminum foil and that metal, that will be an air bubble. And I've had just too many issues with air bubbles of contact cements. The Japanese use contact cement all the time. They use heat guns. And what they'll do is, as they're using those heat guns, they're going to use the heat guns to help kind of flash off some of those solvents as they move the surface of the veneer onto the glue. But again, I tell you, they have a lot of experience with it. They know what they're doing. If you do, go for it. Contact cement as a glue line is cheaper, but man, the peel and sticks have gotten so good, and they're so fast, and they're worry-free. So what we do with the peel and sticks is we have a partner in Florida, so we can take sheets out of sequence and we can add the peel and stick layer to some quantity of your project. Adds $2 a square foot. Sorry, maybe up to $4. And what we're going to do, some of you, if you wish, we do have some corner guards here that we're going to fold later. We've got plenty of material to play with that, whoever wants to play with that. So if I can get the moisture into the surface of the veneer, it'll start to really fold like butter. And as long as I got a good straight edge, I can bend this hard as long as it is parallel with the grain. If I go perpendicular, I can, but I need a decent radius. But again, when we get to these outside edges, like you see here, okay, when he gets to the top and it's a hard edge, he's going to have to cut that. You cannot bend a hard 90 perpendicular to the grain. The veneer will break. I don't care whatever the species is. Some species are a little bit easier to bend than others. We're working with a maple here, so the maple's on the harder side of things. But just always keep that in mind, that when you're going to bend parallel with the edge, that's got to be straight. Now, finding straight edges in any project is unlikely, and therefore I've had a lot of the installers who have said they just gave up on it, and they have their own techniques of doing their cuts at the edges. One of them in outside corners, yeah, where they'll take their blade, their knife, and they'll fold because you know on the outside edge of your drywall, you've got a tight radius. It's like maybe a 1/16 of an inch radius. So it's got a little bit of a radius to it. So what they'll do is they'll take their knife, and they'll take their blade and they'll run their blade along the face of the veneer, and then they'll run their blade from the back. And what that'll do is it'll come around that 1/16 inch radius, and they'll use a little extra adhesive, make that extra sticky at the edge, because that's always the points where it's going to pull out, right? It's going to be in those areas. So just and run the blade from the back, and I've seen some folks just get an amazing result in doing that. But having an outside corner, you know, so these when you've got the radius already built into the door, that's going to be nice and smooth. That's going to fold really well. But when you get to those perpendiculars, we have to be mindful of that. Now, another thing you're going to want to be thinking about is that when the product arrives at the job site, it's either going to be one of these 3 different finishes. And depending on the species, it's going to have a different sheen to it, because even a standard sheen on a maple can have a little bit of a higher look to it. It's just the way the finish sits on it. So our standard finish is 1 sealer coat, 1 top coat. Our 30% finish is 2 sealer coats, 1 top coat. Our 70% is 3 sealer coats, 1 top coat. Okay? And we found that this is the most amount of finish that we could put on this product, and you guys still handle it in the field. Otherwise, it's just too brittle. Okay? Whenever I have somebody ask me for high gloss, like, that's a mill worker, and then that they could spray endless amounts of whatever, of acrylic finish and polyester finishes, and that's, we cry uncle at that point, you know. Or we do have partners that you can put our material in glass at that point. So it's a different product, okay? Before we get into folding the veneer, like we were talking about before, when the boxes arrive, I don't know if you can see this, but you have the case numbers, right? So here's 9, 10, 11, right? And in the case number, you have a number, this 140246, you may not be able to see that. That's the flitch number, okay? And then you have the sheet quantity in sequence, right? So you have sheet number 11 through 20 in this box, a total of 10 pieces. Now, when we do our breakdowns, okay, with your estimating team and the client, and we're ordering the material per the elevations, what we can do is we put a little sticker on there and say 4th floor or this particular elevation. So when the boxes come in, you guys aren't completely blind, right? So the better communication that we have is going to make it easier for these guys in the field, and they won't be wasting time, okay? So this is a little bit of extra time, you know, from our early discussions. Will save a lot of their time in the field, and this is one of the ways that we do that. In these sort of discussions, here's an example of what a project I'm working on right now in Philadelphia. And unfortunately, too often, you know, I know you guys in estimating are juggling a lot. I respect what you do. I'm sure you're working crazy long hours, and you're struggling to deal with the stuff that's staring you in the face right now, and it's hard to be thinking 3 or 4 months in advance and have conversations. But unfortunately in this, we're going to need to have those kind of conversations, because if all you do is you take the surface area and you do your calculation, that's not sufficient, right? We want to understand that these bands, which go all the way, then they go vertical down the wall, that each of these bands has to have a cohesive and consistent look to really maximize the value. Obviously, medical center, this is the architectural masterpiece of the entrance of the space, so it's got to be right, okay? The designers are really good at showing us pretty pictures, and I love that because it helps us fill in the blanks, let us fill in the blanks. We actually prefer that they show us the pretty pictures and we help them achieve what, you know, their goals in the pretty pictures. But when we look at those bands, and I look at the width of these, which is just under 9 feet, and I know that they want the grain to be, they want the grain to be linear, I have to be 3 sheets across, okay? Now, when I'm planning that 3 sheets across and I'm running in a sequence, I know sheet number 1, 2, and 3 are going to be super similar, really similar. And sheets 1, 2, and 3 as I go across are going to, if you overlap and double cut them, okay, are going to be seamless. Now, if you're really, really good and you can butt join it, maybe we could have that we could agree on that. But I would be my preference, and what I see in the market in high level success is the overlap and double cut, because it truly becomes seamless. So 3 sheets across, and then I need to figure out how many sheets go down. But then if I go one, let's do this band because it's easier to see. So if I have 1, 2, 3 sheet, then I go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? That's how I would build it. So because we're slicing the veneer so thin, the difference visually between sheet number 4 and sheet number 1 is still pretty minimal. So it will sequence still really well. So if you're keeping the numbers close to each other, you can maneuver them and it will look right visually. The problem is if you bring in another flitch, right? Or you bring in sheet 25 and you try to make it look right to sheet 1. You know, that's where, so when you get those boxes that we showed you, in the last slide, and you get them to the job site, you really want to properly allocate them, make sure that you've got enough material in those boxes to do those elevations as they are drawn, and sort of lay out that sheet and know how those sheets are going to be done. Are they going to be 1, 2, 3, or are you going to go 1, 2, 3? That would be my preference. Would be 1, 2, 3 go laterally, and then you go sheet number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's how I would do it. Okay, that would be my suggestion. But in the end, it's what looks right. And sometimes we just need to kind of put things out, and we trust you in your experience to have comments towards us to say, you know what, I'm looking at this and I'm really thinking we should think another strategy here. Okay, let's have that conversation. Absolutely, we're absolutely on the same page in making it look right. So the takeoff then comes down to how many sheets do I need to go across, and maybe I don't get to count this area, maybe I don't get to count this area, maybe that goes into my waste factor, and then so how many sheets I need really comes down to how I'm going to lay out that element. I would recommend also to, as I recommended to this installer, to maybe think on having these reveals so that they were not greater than 10 feet, which is the 10-foot sheet that we're going to produce for this project. Just try to, anything we can do to communicate, tell folks, hey, let's try to make things a little bit easier for each other. When you get to these turns, right, this area where the veneer is going to now turn vertical, especially with all those radiuses, I'm just happy you have it, and we'll just pass this around. This is it's called Profilo, and actually you got a scissors, just cut those into some pieces, and then they pass it around, and you'll bend it, and it'll go around the radiuses, and it'll give you not only a plastic profile that can be mudded into the jip, but it is paintable. So now you got something that you can put the veneer up to, and you could trim to that veneer, and you have a minimal little 1/8" reveal that becomes, for the most part, disappears in that area. That's how I would deal. That would be my personal preference. Yep, awesome. Yeah, so and I've looked at some of the others. There are metal ones out there and so forth. They get expensive. This one, I think, for especially this type of situation, is not only the most cost effective, but I think the most visually and easiest to maneuver. Also, when we get to ceilings, like this is the ceiling here, how are the sheets going to be installed? Okay, I have lots of designers that say, oh, it should be end matched. No, let's not end match this. For all the same reasons we were talking about earlier, right? If you end match, you're going to change the direction of things. Now the tonality of sheets start to look, they look weird, they look different. So I would always recommend a stack match, but we need to agree with the specifier. Are we going to go sheet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Or are we going to go 1, 2, or here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when you get to here, you're like, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's a conversation we need to have because they're two kind of different looks. Because you're going to get a sense of banding. It's just whether do you want that banding of the view going this way or this way. Let the designer have their say. Let them fill in their, and again, it might require us to put sheets on the floor and just kind of say, here's what it's going to look like, which way we want to go here, because it's so uncomfortable having them come up and just start to complain and moan and groan that it should have been a different way. So remember I was telling you about the fold the veneer over and do that back knife? Okay, here's what he's doing. So he's come to that outer corner, and now what he's done is he's taken a moist towel, and that moist towel is gonna make that veneer a little bit more flexible, right? And the cool thing is the aluminum foil that's in here is got a memory to it. So if I fold it, and in fact I could probably fold it a little bit, just even dry, and especially this radius on your desk here is soft enough, I could probably do that even cold. It's gonna have the veneer kind of crackle a little bit on me, okay? But even to, because that radius is kind of soft, it's actually not so bad, right? Just even cold. But just even a damp cloth would make that bend even smoother and cleaner. Now the fastest and the easiest is going to be the iron, because that steam is going to get into the veneer the most quickly and the most completely, and now that will fold even nicer. But here it's just a damp rag back and forth, getting the moisture in the veneer, and then folding it over the edge. But then he just took his knife over the face of that and then ran his blade from behind and just kind of ran his finger so he could control it. And he had a really clean, now this guy's got 40 years experience. They just had a beautiful outside cut. And then he did the same in the other direction. Sometimes a little bit of filler you might want to use, a little bit of the gap, but he did use a little extra adhesive too, so he had that outside corner extra sticky, okay? So other outside corner options, here's on the Emory University project which we reviewed, we used the Fry reglet systems. The Fry reglets are pricey, but they do, one of their benefits is there's a lot of cool, design features to them, and designers like them. And the other thing I like is on those outside corners, they protrude out, right? So they stick out beyond the wall. And if you've got people bumping into corners, that's a great way to give a sort of a durable corner that could be, they anodize these things to match, but they certainly add quite a bit to the cost. The next thing is, of course, we talked about, the folding. Folding using contact cement. So this you can see a little bit more close up, see how that protrudes out. And no matter what, even if you have the Profilo, or no matter what it is you're doing, having a corner guard that you can make, and these I really recommend on every job. If you got any outside corners, you're going to use your scrap veneer. We've got metal and we've got plastic here, so we can play around with both. And then this way we'll use the iron, and you guys can get a feel of folding those outside corner guards. So now in this aluminum one, these are ones I made in the garage. So I was playing around with this, and it started to break. Okay, this is me just messing around, and I don't even think I used the iron. You can, with the iron, you can bend pretty well here, but what I also see, guys, is that they'll score the face of the veneer. So if you just take the blade and you run the blade over just the face of the veneer and don't cut through it, but just score the veneer, now you can get it to fold, because you still got that aluminum foil that's holding everything together. In a corner guard, I don't know how detailed you want to get, but it's so you know your options. But that gives you an indication of how well you can get that veneer to fold over parallel with the grain when you got some moisture in it. Here's an outside corner which was wrapped, and there are guys that will do it, but I will caution and counsel that it's potentially and more likely more headache than it's worth. So he's just got moisture in the seam.
Damp cloth or sponge.
Yep. And if you're gonna do these fold over on these outside corners, you want to have at least about 4 or 5 inches So it's bonded on the other side, okay? So you're either gonna cut at the corner and try to make it look right, or fold it over and give yourself at least 4 or 5 inches so that you've got a good bond that doesn't peel away. But before you even do anything, put a straight edge on that and make sure it's on point. If it's not on point, don't even try this. Because any lack of straightness on that outside corner will come off as like a pucker. Bubble, pucker, yep, any of those things, any of the above. So I like this for a lot of reasons. One, it could be painted to match. It's very minimalistic. It's got, when you fold it, you feel like you could tuck the veneer into it a little bit. It's it just works in a lot of different situations. And when I look at the final result, and you could see, I'm like right up on this picture. I'm right up in there. So it really goes minimal. I mean, so yeah, so you're from a distance, it's like, to me, this is pressing the easy button on outside corners. We're gonna get to clays in a little bit, right? Clays and primers. Hey. We put a lot of effort into playing around with different glues, different primers, different substrates to understand, what's working well, what's not working well. But what it's also happens is these manufacturers, like mostly we're using Roman products, they change their formulation sometimes, right? So if you see something in the field that's not right, raise your hand and say, hey, something you recommended this, but something not right. Maybe the job site conditions are meaning we maybe need to be thinking about something different, right? Also, guys, really important too, when you bond to metals, right? Sometimes there's oils on these metals. So you might need to, like if you're gonna do a door and you're gonna bond to it, whether you're using a peel and stick or you're gonna use a contact cement, you might need to give it like an acetone wash or some sort of solvent, get any oils, any sort of dirt off that might interfere with the bond of whatever glue line you're gonna use. Well, the instructions in this stuff says 2 to 4 minutes, okay? But generally with contacts, it's going to be, it shouldn't still feel wet, right? When you get the steam in here, and you're really not going to hurt the veneer. What can hurt the veneer is the heat. So careful with the heat. Especially if it's direct heat, you can potentially burn the veneer. If you get over like I would say 180 Fahrenheit, if you get over that, and you have direct contact for any long period of time on the veneer, you can start to change the color of the veneer. But you can see how that veneer now has gone expanded, right? So if you're doing this on a table, maybe like those pins or something to kind of pin it down to the table would be helpful. And you may find that having 2 people doing this would also be helpful. So anybody know Veronica from Chicago? Veronica Leal? She's so there's a union training center in Chicago. She's taught a lot of hangers over the years, and Veronica has really helped us. What we've done is we went to Chicago, and we had a big project where we took all these different primers and test them to different substrates in different clays. That was our mission. And our mission was to install them, all the different substrates, just like a 2x2 area, and then walk away for a month, come back a month later, and peel it off and see what we saw. So this is the data we're happy to share with you on an ongoing basis. But remember, this is one environment. This is Chicago, and it was during the summer months, so the humidity was pretty normal, right? And of course, we had an absolute professional here with our friend Veronica, and you know, she was showing me what's too much and what's not enough. So here was our mission. Our mission was to look at all of the primers, and then look at the primers in combination with the clays, peel them away, and see what the wall looked like after the fact. So we happy to share all this data with you guys most specifically. Short answer is there's a number of different primers that can work. 111 is our favorite. But whether we're going to, you know, old repair drywall, new drywall, sometimes we're bonding to even the MDF, which is, I'm not a fan of bonding to MDF in the field. If that situation comes up, let's have a serious conversation, because I'll likely try to talk you out of it. So if somebody tries to say, hey, let's bond the clay to MDF in the field, has it been done? Yes. Has it been done sometimes successfully? Yes, but less times successfully, because the MDF is wanting to move.
So it's better to like do it off the job site, lay it flat, and get it.
The veneer will bond beautifully to MDF with wood glues and built as millwork. But if you're trying to install to MDF like you know as a hanger, and you try to go over joints and stuff like that, that's where we have all the problems. Okay, so I would counsel you to stick in the wall covering world always to gypsum or to like GFRG or something like that. So here's kind of how it all comes to okay, primers across, adhesives below. You know, you see these A10s, very strong bond, very strong bond. But notice that when we get to you know, the kills, well, I don't know why we gave that a 5 when it pulls everything, even the drywall mud. You know, I think with this material, the whole idea of being able to peel it off and leave the drywall in good shape, I think we just negate that idea. I think with this product, it's all about getting the best possible bond to that gypsum, because it's a premium product and it should be there as long as possible. So, you know, making something that you could peel back later, I think we just take that out of the equation completely, and we focus on strong bonds. That's always, I think, is going to be my mission. And if these glues and these primers aren't on the list, it's either we didn't test it or they failed. I will say something. Who's a fan of guards?
David.
You like guards? Okay. I am too, but in certain situations. Guards is only right to damaged drywall. One of the problems we're seeing with guards, very important, is it's so good at sealing the wall that now the moisture from the clay can't go anywhere. So you've experienced this, right? It literally will prevent any moisture from going into it, which means that the moisture in the clay can't cure. So I love guards. It's the right primer in certain situations, but in other situations it can cause problems because it's so good at sealing the wall that the clay, you know, like, so we were seeing here, see backing is feeling damp, right? Because, and this was 30 days. This was 30 days after we applied the clay, bonded it, and so if we're still feeling moisture from the clay to the primer after 30 days, it means that primer is a good primer, but it did such a good job sealing that the moisture can't go anywhere. And that could cause peeling at the seams, right, if the clay is not able to cure. And what's really, really vital is that for that first 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks, first is making sure we have the right formula, right? The right clay and the right primer for the project. Guys, something that you're comfortable with, okay? Something that we're also comfortable with. But it's also that the climate control stays stable for that month. Because imagine like any glue, right? How do glues work? Glues work because they cross-link, they grab on, right? And when a glue is curing and that clay is getting harder, it's curing and drying, it's getting stronger and stronger, providing it's in the same place. But imagine you've got a cross-link and now it's shifting, it's moving because you have climate controls that are moving all over the place, okay? So these are things you kind of have to keep an eye on. If you see that they're playing around while you're trying to install and the humidities are going all over the place, that could negatively affect your bond and it's going to cause a claim that we have to go deal with. So pay close attention to that. Raise red flags that they're disturbing the curing process of all your hard work, and now we may all be facing a claim. So know and warn that the climate controls should be stable. This should be a known thing, but it's unfortunately, it's just our painful reality that we deal with this. They're not concerned about anything other than what they're doing. But anytime they're installing millwork, the millworker is going to have the same thing. So a lot of these finished products that are coming into the space are going to have these big concerns. And that's why I'm always going to be the champion with you to say, if the building's not ready, the climate control systems are not ready, all the other, if the building's not ready for you, let's not go in, let's not do it. And I will fight that fight with you. But I also like that 977 pigmented primer. So if you're going to do a lot of those butt seams, that's going to be your friend, the pigmented primer. Okay. Also helpful, when you get, to your trims up at the top wall and so forth, it'll help hide that, or maybe they're rushing you like crazy to get something in the space and the space wants to open, but you can't install for another couple weeks. Go ahead, do your pigmented primer, give them a wall that's at least decent looking, and then you can go in and then a couple weeks later do your thing. I do have, the primer coat is really quite crucial. I have a lot of hangers, especially in the residential market, that prefer to make sure, they get to inspect their mud, the quality of the flatness, they get to do their primer coat, because their responsibility is the final end result. They want to have a thumbs up and they want to have some input into the quality of the substrate and the quality and the accuracy of the primer. I do end up with claims where the person doing the priming and the drywall and the person doing the installation are different people and not necessarily caring about what the other one has to do. So it doesn't sound like that's an issue here at Merrick Brothers. So that's great to know.
Do you have paint color codes to match these already? Like for painting, like if we had to paint these?
No, you just have to take your sample in, because one of the cool things about wood veneer is it could be so many. We basically, 90% of our projects are very specifically made, custom stains to the project. So there's no hard and fast rules. Any other questions about this? Robert.
So, David, when we did gray, we did guards at first, I think. And then we used the 935. And what did we changed to Roman 935? Yeah, I think that's. So you have Roman 935 as one of your tests. You do right there, Pro 935.
Yep.
Okay, so there's your answer.
There's you got 10s across the board. Look at that.
Yeah. So it came out the guards has too strong of a smell from some of our, especially our downtown clients. And I know we saw the problem at our Brave project. So that's you. So use 935. So if you guys get no way it'll smell. Yeah. So if you guys get an alternate to guards, that'll work on sheetrock. Now you have to note there, new sheetrock will 935 work on damaged sheetrock.
Yeah.
So recommend the guards.
Yeah, I think the guards is a good on the damage because it penetrates so deeply. Okay. I think inevitably when we get to certain situations, let's have a discussion. Okay. And I think it's always, especially on big jobs, let's do a test area. Let's do that as part of the mock-up. We really want to do 3 sheets install for mock-up to make sure everything is right. It's happened. It's happened where miscommunication, misunderstanding, also too, where maybe the wrong material was shipped, the wrong material was made, or here's another reality, is that, and I don't have a slide here, but Douglas fir, fresh produced, is very light. It's almost like that color. Douglas fir that's been oxidizing for 3 years is like 4 shades darker. Which sample was the control sample? What did the client sign off on? And what showed up to the job site? So sometimes this dialogue is important too, you know, because yeah, I can stain a light veneer to dark, but I can't reverse the natural oxidation of veneers, okay? So, so here's the damaged drywall to the guards. Notice we had great results. We also had great results on what you guys call the hot mud, the fast curing mud.
Yeah, quickset.
Yep. Yep. It bonds well. You just can't float it out that well. If the mud's wet, you're going to have problems. If the mud, you know, so it's all about the bond of everything behind it. So if the mud's not properly bonded to the gyp, there's no way our product's going to perform, right? And the mud's got to be cured. Now here you do see MDF in the field, and you do see that we are having, the Gardner Gibson did bond incredibly well. There may be situations where I would say, okay, going to MDF in the field with the guards is, maybe it's a good thing. But remember, wherever you have an end of an MDF panel, that should be the end of your veneer. You never want to go span the seam of an MDF panel, because the MDF is expanding and contracting. And so if you try to go over the seam of the MDF, you will have a failure point there. Guaranteed fail. Okay? So if you're going to bond the MDF in the field, make sure wherever the edge of the MDF is where the veneer ends, and you have a reveal or something, because that's how millwork works. Contact adhesive is a skill set unto itself. If you're not comfortable with the contact adhesive, like Robert and I were talking, let's just do the peel and stick. It's safer. Now, peel and stick does have a little bit of its own kind of thing. I don't have samples of it here today, but if you've ever worked with the peel and sticks, it's like you have the backer, which you peel away. You can sort of touch it, right? You can kind of position it, and then when you've got it in the right place, just kind of lightly tack it, because if something happens, you can still pull it away. And then you peel away the backing, and then you, just like in contact cement, you kind of roll it out from that area. But with peel and sticks, what confirms the bond is the pressure. So you don't want to apply pressure to the peel and sticks until you know you've got it in exactly the right place. Because you may still have a little bit of a chance to pull away the peel and stick and reposition it and put it back. But the moment you put pressure on it, that stuff's going to be really well bonded. And in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, the bond keeps curing. It's incredible bond. It's the same stuff we use for auto dash boards. Interesting, and just kind of more FYI for you guys, but the Japanese don't have clay adhesives. They don't even have it. They use all PVA wood glue. And I guess it'd just be kind of a point of interest, but maybe one day you're on a job site and you can't get the clay, but you got a tub of PVA glue. You can prime the wall with 10% PVA, 90% water, and you can prime the wall with that, and then just spread PVA in the back of the sheet and install it similarly like you do with the clay, and it works really well. But I personally don't like the smell of the PVA. I think the clay, from a VOC standpoint, I think the clay is a better product, and we've had a lot of years of success with it. Any questions? No. So again, when you get to those edges, make it extra sticky. Sizing it, also ceilings. Size those ceilings. Make them extra sticky, okay? Now, we have good success to ceilings, right? But not every veneer, quote-unquote, wall covering is made the same, and not every manufacturer will warranty, success on ceilings. So just FYI on that, okay? But our product has a long history of success on ceilings, but make it extra sticky up there. Guys, that's for the most part all I have to really talk about today. Let me just kind of say in closing how much I respect all of you and the care that you put in the work that you do. And just know that we're always here for you and with you. Your success is our success. Your failures are our failures. We want you guys to make a lot of money and have fun installing this stuff, right? And have the same pride that we have in producing this and creating beautiful spaces. So just know that this dialogue will continue ongoing as you need us. And whatever, please bring your sons and daughter in this business, because this is a beautiful business. And we'd like to have meetings with them like this and show them this is a great way that they can make a living too. So guys, thank you all for your attention and your time today. Thank you.
National Solutions.
Thank you.